Hi, I'm Joyce Glass, the Write Coach and co-founder of the Write Academy, here today with quick tip number 8 from the Write Coach. And the tip is the top writing habit. What is the most important habit, or one of the most important habits, that you can have as a writer? Well, if you remember, and it still goes on today, the way people used to learn things was being an apprentice. And of course, this still happens today all over the world, that you learn your trade or skill by being under someone else who is further along, who has more experience in doing what you want to do for your career or your hobby. So I want to know, who are your mentors? Who is mentoring you on your writing process? And you can have many mentors. I have, a lot of different mentors that help me with my writing, and there's a lot of them that have helped me along the way. I've taken a lot of online classes, I've read a lot of books, I read a lot of blogs. So all of that has helped me in growing as a writer, as well as, of course, the practice of writing. But one of the best things you can do is read books, or have someone that you can follow on a blog that can mentor you. And if you don't have a mentor, I would love to be one of your mentors. So I would love for you to follow me on the writecoach.biz. You can sign up and receive, right now the download is for the blog post blueprint, but if you don't do a blog post, that's okay. Sign up for that, and you will be able to receive my tips that I send out weekly, and I can mentor you on the writing journey. I help writers who are learning the craft of writing. But what I want to give you today, the top tip, the most important tip, writing habit, is reading other books about writing, as well as reading books in the genre that you want to write. So if you want to write romance novels, you need to be reading romance novels. If you want to write personal development books, then you need to be reading personal development books. And find out, what are these other people doing? What are they doing that you like? And what are they doing that you don't like? And how can your book be different that you want to write? So you want to think through these things. But of course, it all takes time and practice. Just like if you were an apprentice working with someone, you just don't instantly know how you're going to do something. Like an Olympic athlete just doesn't become an Olympic athlete overnight. And someone who wants to become a doctor, whether it's, a surgeon or a pediatrician or a pharmacist or even an optometrist, those all take time and skill, and they have to work with someone else to teach them how to do their job even better. And then once they get some skill, they may figure out and learn some things and do things differently. And it's the same thing with writing. When you have someone mentoring you, you see what they're doing, what you like, what you don't like, and then it may spark the idea to do something differently, how you can make it better, or how you can put your spin on it and your personality into it, or your voice into it. So you want to do that. And so some of my favorite books I wanted to share with you real quick. And of course, if you have any questions, if you're watching this live or replay, if you have any questions, please post it in the comments, and I would love to help you with any questions that you may have about writing. But the first one is Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. This is what I call a foundational book, or even a great standard in the industry for writing. Most people say, if you want to write a book, read Anne Lamott's book. She gives some great encouragement and tips on the writing process, and it will really help you in growing as a writer. Then On Writing, a Memoir of the Craft, is by Stephen King, which most people know who Stephen King is. I am not a fan of his style of writing, just because I'm not into that kind of writing, but I loved reading this book because, first of all, I love to hear people's stories. And Stephen King was not always Stephen King as we know him today. Is great successful writer who has had many of his books turned into movies. So it's great to hear his story and his struggle. He had many rejection letters over the years, people not liking things, but then things turned around for him, and he shares his story, and there's a lot of humor into it because him and his brother were quite the pair growing up, and he shares his growing up years as well as some of how his writing career started, and then about the craft of writing. So excellent book is on writing, a memoir of the craft. Again, I would consider that one a second one standard in the industry, that a lot of people will say, if you want to write a book, those will be one of the first two people will most mention as a book to help you with writing. Then there's Elements of Style. Again, this is another industry standard that's been out for a long time. And it's just basically to help you with the practice of writing. So you want to make sure that you're doing things, you want to know what the rules are, but then you want to know how you know how to break the rules. And that's what the Elements of Style will help you, is to know what the rules are, so you know if you need to break them, want to break them. If you struggle following rules, like I am sometimes, then you will definitely want to check that one out. Then You Are a Writer, so Start Acting Like One by Jeff Goins. He has been one of my mentors. I took his course, Tribe Writers, many moons ago, and was actually, I think, in his very first group of people who took the course. I think I was in the initial group. I was either in the initial group or the second set, but I'm pretty sure I was in the initial group. It's been a while, so I can't remember. I'd have to go back and look. But Jeff Goins inspires people, all the time with his blog posts and his courses and with his books. And a lot of his books inspired me. He was the first one to say, if you write, say you're a writer. Don't be afraid to say you're a writer. And I'm asking you, if you write, don't be afraid to say you're a writer. And you got to start acting like one. If you really seriously want to be a writer, if you really want to write books, then I suggest you read this book and start acting like one. And it will really help you and encourage you and support you in your writing journey. Then another one that I have found in the past year, I am actually working on a novel, and I love, it's called DIY MFA, which stands for, MFA is Masters of Fine Arts, and obviously DIY is do it yourself. And it's Write with Focus, Read with Purpose, Build Your Community. That's Gabriella Piera. I guess that's how you say her last name. I'm not really totally sure, but hopefully I did not butcher it, Gabriella. I love her website, her post. I love this book. It's really helping me with working on my novel. So if you are working on fiction, this is a great book to help you with fiction writing. Plot and Structure by James Scott Bell. There's another fiction book that helps you with that. But also bear in mind, elements of fiction work well in nonfiction. So if you're telling stories in your nonfiction book, you will want to use some of the elements of fiction, of how you write your story. And so it may be good to read some of these fiction books to help you with your nonfiction book. And then Structure Your Novel by K.M. Weiland. That is another good book. I love her, and she's got a great website too. And James Scott Bell, I like his story. All of these people have great backstories of how they went into writing and what happened to them. And James Scott Bell's story was that he was told that people are either born writers or they're not. And so for years he believed that lie. And then he realized, after he pursued a career, I think it was a lawyer, I'm sorry, I forget what it was. It's some kind of corporate work he did. And he realized he could actually learn how to write. It took him a while to overcome believing that lie. And he learned how to write because it was bubbling up in him, and he wanted to write, and he decided to do it. And you can read more about his story. He shares a little bit of it in Plot and Structure, and there's some other places that he shares it. And so check him out too. And like K.M. Weiland, I love her. She's very structured, organized, and I like her thinking. And so it's good to get some different points of view. But of course, Structuring Your Novel is fiction too. So the last three are for fiction. The first four are all, for writing in general. So anything from any of these writers is perfect to find. It's a great book. You can't go wrong. If you see another book by K.M. Weiland, like she has one about outlining a book that I like too, that I'm working through. So anything by James Scott Bell, he's got other ones, characters and dialogue, and those are good to work through as well. So make sure that you're reading like one book a month or 2 a month if you're a fast reader, or some of them you may have to like chew on a little bit. That's what I do is I'll read a chapter or 2 and kind of do what it says, and then I'll read another chapter or 2 and then do what it says, and implement what it says into my writing. So that is a great way to do it. So whatever method works for you, but just make sure that you are reading as well as writing. That is very important that you want to do that. So I hope everyone has a wonderful and beautiful day, and I will see you next time for Tips from the Write Coach. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next Thursday, 12:30 Eastern Time, for Tips from the Write Coach.